Hello and welcome back to Deadfall. This is BioEnchanted, and today we'll be going through the second level, and the first where the secrets start getting really interesting. I quite like this level. It's got a lot of variety and a lot of different puzzles and things. As you can see from the timestamp, it's a long level. Around the middle there's kind of an ugly cut, but it's the best I could do. I had to re-record a section because part of the recording had gone a bit weird. Like, one of the cutscenes started to skip, and it also messed up a little bit when getting one of the secrets. So I've tried to splice that together as best I can to get the gist of what's going on there. I quite like this initial room with the pillars and the sarcophagus in the middle, and the giant obvious door with the statues on either side of it. It's a very visually interesting set piece.
Ready, Quatermain? Then do the honors.
But also, an interesting thing here is we don't actually have to get the Tear of Isis. She already has it from a previous adventure.
In a museum. Yeah, and the reward for finding it belongs to your bank account.
Yes! Yes! Oh no!
Many believe my great-grandfather to be a crazy liar, with his tales of African spirits and ancient beasts lurking in the dark. I was one of them. But life has a way of changing your perspective.
Ich habe bereits 12 Männer da hineingeschickt. Nicht einer ist wieder herausgekommen. Wir können uns keine weiteren Verluste leisten.
Aber die Tore sind offen. Wir sind so gut wie am Ziel.
Ah, the Yankee is awake.
Good morning, Mr. Quatermain. Always a pleasure to meet a man of such august extraction, even under these unfortunate circumstances. And Fräulein Goodwin, many thanks for opening the gate for us. You have been most helpful.
How do you know our names?
And thank you for confirming them. Again, most helpful.
Oh, good one.
Don't be so hard on her, Mr. Quatermain. After all, it was you who let her driver go. He was very willing to share everything his eager ears had heard. In this savage country, don't you know mercy will only cause you trouble? I think your people call it getting rid of loose ends, yes?
Exactly.
Wait, we might still need...
Halt! Where do you try to go? Let's see how far your boyfriend comes.
One obvious thing first of all there.
Just a quick trip to the temple, she said. In and out in a second, she said.
Is the Nazi armbands are so low effort. They're just a big kind of red X just kind of splattered on there in paint. Well, a black X, but either way, it's like you're calling them Nazis. It's set in the 1930s. Why not just give them swastika armbands? What, are you afraid of offending someone? It's just such a weird compromise to make. They already have the iron crosses and everything. It's obvious they're German Nazis, so why not just allow them the swastikas? It's the one situation in which they'd be relevant and appropriate. But here's our first major kind of puzzle in this game, at least in this level, is the floor panel puzzle. In this case it's fairly simple. Avoid all the snakes and only step on the Eye of Ras. Of course there's only one path you can really take. So let's avoid the snakes and stick to these eyes, shall we? Otherwise, as those two explorers near us will attest to, we'll get filled full of arrows. And that's not much fun. It's a fairly basic puzzle, but it's about the usual thing you'd see in any Indiana Jones property, so it's fairly appropriate. And of course over here we have our first treasure. Behind our pharaoh statue, before we go through that door, we have our way of life behind this guy. Or the path of life. As you may be able to tell, this is one of the biggest levels in the game. It has 15 treasures, which is more than most of the levels have. You don't really get that number until more than halfway through the game. Every level after this point has way fewer. So yeah, here it's fairly obvious from the notebook, both of them need to be Eye of Ra's, because it's the only legible symbol there. Because it's a normal mode, one's already there, so there we are. I haven't played this game on anything but normal for both, so I don't really know exactly how the puzzles and the puzzles were affected, or the combat's fairly obvious, but the puzzles, it's like I can guess how they were affected, or maybe the solution's more complex, that kind of thing, but on normal they're just generally fine, so I don't mind that. This is the first puzzle that actually stumped me a little bit the first time through this level, because I didn't know how to interact with it. You see, the trick is we need to get that gold statue at the top down from here. And of course, those were supported by these planks. What we need to do is weaken them by shooting the planks to drop the plates. It took me a bit to work that out. Because I didn't notice the crosshair going red before. But this is how you do it. I quite like these kind of puzzles because they're actually kind of puzzly in that you have to work out how to interact with the environment to make the thing happen. In some cases like this one, it is fairly obvious in hindsight, but if you don't expect it, it can be a little bit tricky to work out. I mean, some of the puzzles do get fairly basic, but some of them are kind of like a little clever in interesting little ways. And of course there's some classic puzzles as well, but we'll see those later. So there is our first path of warrior. So yeah, remember, life is silver, warrior are gold, and light are blue. And here's how we use those treasures to upgrade ourselves. So let's get our health and stamina boosted, shall we? So now we can run faster and take more damage in combat. There are actually more than enough treasures to completely fill everything up. I actually got through the entire game, missed a few treasures, and was still able to completely max everything. I'm still going to be grabbing all the treasures I can throughout the run to show off the puzzles and where they are, because some of them are fairly ingeniously hidden. And sometimes the puzzles are more kind of environmental, like how do I get there, or what's the trick to surviving the trap that guards it.
Dr. Hagen scheint davon überzeugt zu sein.
Let's shoot all the men, shall we? These guys don't take much damage. These are fairly easy combat things, but that's because they're really early in the game. Later on, the enemies will become bullet sponges, but at the moment, they're fairly basic. There's one particular fight that I've just done on my playthrough that I'm thinking of that's a huge pain. I quite like this chamber. It's a very pretty look with the very turquoise lighting around the statue, because of course there's water at the bottom of the pit. This is actually a fairly cheeky area, because as you can tell from the hint, what you need to do here, I'm going to show off how you were meant to solve the puzzle, and then show off how to get the secret, which will also allow us to bypass the puzzle. So what we're meant to do is shoot these things, and that stops the crushers dropping, but we don't really have to bother doing that. I mean, we could do that and risk ourselves, but there is a treasure right there. You may be able to notice a way around to that treasure that will also allow us to bypass the entire room, pretty much. It's a pretty great secret. I like this one a lot. Yeah, it's as simple as this. Just walk along this ledge. Don't have to do any of this room, just walk to the left and we're fine. No traps, no tricks. Let's just grab the treasure now. Which is actually on the other side of a thing, so yeah, we will need to be a little tricky to get it, because there's a spike pit down there. So of course, shoot the gold thing, which we were just introduced to, and it extends the bridge. We need to be quick there, because the bridge immediately starts opening again, I believe. As soon as you grab the treasure, at least. It might even be as soon as it's closed, I'm not entirely certain, I've never stayed on there long enough to find out. A few treasures like that, you have to be kind of either careful or quick, depending on how the treasure makes something happen. Like some treasures, if you're really late in the game, like if you're too slow doing something, if you're hesitant, worrying about what's going to happen to the treasure, then you won't be able to get it. But with that, you'll see those later on. For now, this was more of a dart in, grab it, dart out, which are more than normal right at the beginning of the game. First few levels tend to have a few of those. Especially this level, there's a few of them like that in this level. That being the first. So yeah, don't need to bother with the crushers, we're now done with that room, so let's move on, shall we? I like the extending stairs, that's a pretty cool visual thing. More interesting than just walking upstairs. And of course this one actually took me a bit as well, because I couldn't get the crosshair to turn red, and I thought that was important, but it's not. You just shoot the bracket and it drops the thing. And then this Path of the Warrior here is just a gimme. That's a very basic one. I quite like all these opening walls as well, that's a neat visual with like all the different layers opening up together. And here is our major puzzle. And the area where the recording kind of broke, so this is where the ugly cut will be.
Maybe there's something about it in the old man's notebook.
This one's fairly basic, as you might be able to tell from that hard to see diagram in the bottom right. It's a light reflection puzzle. Anything blue that you see in the environment, like any blue glass, you need to shine light on, basically. That's how these puzzles work.
Mess with an ancient mechanism of a culture famous for its death traps.
So yeah, here what we need to do is shine the light onto the backs of each of these statues to light up their eyes.
Captivating eyes. Those statues are in surprisingly good shape.
And one thing I like is there's actually a really good reason for their eyes to light up like that, but we'll see that when the puzzle's complete. It's a clever little bit of like world building when it comes to the whole like ancient technology kind of angle. So of course what we need to do here is shine the light on as many statues as it can reach, and then move it to another mirror to shine onto different statues. There are actually a couple of mirrors. There's actually a mirror that we don't need to touch. That I think is mostly there for the hard mode version of the puzzle, which probably blocks other things. But in the meantime, we only really need to use the main mirrors on the normal version of the puzzle. But it does have a little bit of a twist right at the end of the puzzle, so it's not entirely that simple on normal. It's probably only really simple on easy. And of course, we can't rotate it any further to the right, so we now need to find some more mirrors to finish this puzzle. I quite like this puzzle because it's visually interesting. I like all the little, like, white shinies that occur all over the place when you do these puzzles. It's pretty striking visual to have the statues do that little, like, light up runes on down the sides and then shoot out their eyes thing. It's very visually pretty. It's nice to watch it expand, and it does a good job showing you, like, better that it's charging something up. Because a lot of the time it just takes a while because it takes a while, but here it feels like it's taking a while because it's actually activating something important. Also, it's a very satisfying noise. I also like that the light actually makes noise as well when you interrupt it. It's a very kind of unnecessary, but it's nice to have that kind of aesthetic well, audio aesthetic, yeah, that kind of thing. Not quite certain how to put it with that. Have that kind of sound design, to have even the light making noises, like everything has some kind of important feedback to it. So here is actually where we need one of these exterior mirrors. Not that interior, but I meant facing out. So yeah, here we need to actually get to that one behind the bubble, because it's the only one that can reach the final of these blue statues. Puzzle solved.
And this must be our esteemed host, the Pharaoh with the flair for the dramatic.
Bravo, Mr. Quarterman. This is the second time you've helped us today. Now, if you would please step away from the tomb and allow me to take care of the heart.
Careful! According to my research, the tomb can trigger this entire room to collapse.
is it empty? What did you do with it?
No magic heart inside. Not even a magic appendix.
Fool! The heart of Atlantis is power beyond belief, forged by the greatest civilization ever to walk the earth. It must be here. It has to be. I don't understand.
You, smart girl. Help the doctor.
Over my dead body.
Careful, Fräulein Goodwin. Hauptsturmführer Stein would be happy to oblige such a request.
All right, all right. A broken heart can never beat. It binds. A starving or maybe famished king? I can't make out the rest. Something about the leg of a guide?
And again, you prove to be of great help, Fräulein Goodwin. Anubis, the Emerald God. He accompanied the pharaohs on their last journey. Even the embalmers wore his mask. A man with the head of a jackal.
You talk too much.
That's just one part. Its guardians must have divided it up. But where did they put the other half?
Well, I guess we tried. Time to head home, everybody. Great job.
Not so fast, Mr. Quarterman. Fräulein Goodwin, would you please be so kind and put the fragment into the shrine over there? I'd do it myself, but there may well be more traps.
Move!
So this is an interesting thing. The light up eyes aren't just lighting up, they're actually an ancient hologram display. Which is why they're on all sides of the object, so that they can like project a full 3D image of what we're seeing. I really like that kind of ancient technology twist, it's always a fun one. And of course here what we have is a star map.
Unglaublich. Stellar constellations. Hauptsturmführer, I think we are ready to leave.
Good. Auf Wiedersehen, Quartermain.
Take Fräulein Goodwin and get out of here. It will get ugly in here. Take this. You need both. Now run. I am the shepherd. Stein trusts me, and I would like to keep it that way. So go.
Yeah, the German guy's actually the shepherd all this time. A double agent on the Nazi side. And here is the main aspect of the game that actually makes it really difficult. These guys aren't too bad right now. But oh my god, it'll get difficult later.
Shines so bright.
Just pressed a button. Whatever that thing was, though, it sure didn't enjoy it any.
This is an ugly cut here.
This age-old slumber.
You meant to just shoot the pot and it drops the artifact, but of course this was the one after I picked it up, so I'm going to splice to me picking it up and then we'll do the... Here we are, that's me picking it up on the previous one where the recording kind of corrupted while the pot was being shot, so it kind of threw everything out of whack a bit visually. I mean, it's not a good cut, but that's as pretty as I can get it.
I don't like this. Quartermain, help! I'm slipping!
Hold
So
on.
let's save Miss Goodwin, shall we? Oh dear. We did a wonderful job there at saving Miss Goodwin, didn't we? Sometimes a bit of Tomb Raider, but you can't lose, so. And here is a big fight for the first time. Nazis versus mummies. So first of all, let's thin out the Nazis a little bit, because there's a few too many right now. And what we'll do is we're actually going to make the mummies vulnerable to bullets and focus on them so the Nazi can actually be helping us kill the mummies. And then we'll turn on the Nazi. It's called strategy, you see. Otherwise we'll have to kill the Nazi and deal with like 5 mummies, and I don't want to do that. Because later on in the game we will get absolutely swarmed by these guys. I mean, as of now it's a bit basic. The mummies are fairly simple. They're not into many big numbers, and they're not all focused on you right now. But that will change very, very quickly going forward. I mean, most of the enemies we encounter at the beginning of the game are the Germans, but that will change. And the mummies will constitute some of the hardest fights in the entire game, but again, we'll see that when we see it. I think I'd tell you now that they're a huge pain. I like the visual thing here, where now we have a bunch of scaffolding and things from the Nazis that have been digging here as well, and now we've actually caught up a bit. So in here we have another grab the treasure and run puzzle. You'll see why. It's the treasure of Path of Light treasure. A very pleasing blue. As soon as we pick it up, poison gas starts hissing in, so let's just flee now, shall we? Because that would not be a good thing to get caught up in. This next thing we're going to show off is completely optional. We have no reason to do this, but I just kind of want to show off that it's here. If you press this button, we can actually summon a lift.
Finally, a way out of here.
What, mate? Watch out!
I said summon, I never said we'd be using it, but it does actually give us a free weapon. Now we have an assault shotgun with a flashlight attached. Those are the most useful weapons late in the game because they completely shred mummies, but again, for now, that's limited use. So let's stick with our usual strategy of allow the Nazi to try and take out some mummies until he dies. I don't really spawn in as well. They always come out of the walls or coffins and things like that. They always kind of come out of something. There's always something they've come from. As far as I'm aware, at least nearly always. Sometimes it can seem a little bit contrived when there's so many of them, but yeah. I mean, the game does do monster closets, but not till much later. I quite like this set piece. Looking down into the hole and just picking off what we can from up here. Gives us a nice little advantage. It's a nice tactical area. And of course, Nazis have blown that area so that more mummies can't get in, I think, because they're kind of panicking right now and dealing with a load of them. This is the first of the real pains, is when they start coming out with shields. I mean, because of course we can actually only flashlight them so much while they have the shield up. We can either tear their shield up to pieces with the assault rifle like I'm doing now, or we can throw a grenade and just be done with it, because that'll blow the shield to hell, but I just don't feel like doing that right now, and I kind of don't think to do it anyway as well. But the shield's gone, so now they're still immune to bullets while they're not golden. The flashlight needs to make them gold for them to actually be killable properly, otherwise their defense is just through the roof. So here is another floor tile puzzle. Same as before, there's a lot more varieties of tiles, but still just stick to the Eye of Horus. Which is the Eye of Ra, which is it's the same thing. As far as I'm aware anyway, I looked it up and it seems to be the same symbol, it's just how they're described and how they're used. I don't know if the floor tiles are deactivated, but I always prefer to just take the path out just in case. Because of course this game doesn't autosave as you pick things up, it autosaves at certain checkpoints. Which means that if you pick up a really difficult treasure and then die, on the way back from it or something, you'll need to go back all the way to the treasure again, and there's one treasure later on that's a real pain with that. But it's one of those things where you kind of have to just get the hang of it. Here's a fairly neat one. It's kind of a direct Indiana Jones reference here. Because while there is no visual, like, clue, like the whole Yahweh thing, it's the same visual idea where you have to stand on the ones that actually have a big pillar underneath them, because that's actually how it worked in the movie. It was, after all the floor tiles fell away when you screwed up the puzzle, all the ones that were stable had big pillars underneath them. So it's a bit of a minor visual reference that's not as obvious as some of them can be. Now we also have a fairly basic path on the way back. Again, hard mode, the path will probably have a lot of jumps and things, but I don't care for playing on hard mode in these kind of games in general, because I'm bad at shooters. And I know how to solve the puzzles on the normal level, so less wasted time. This boss is tad weird, but we'll see. Because it kind of reverses what normally happens.
The ceiling!
Because normally it's the ceiling in here that will be falling, but it's not, it's the ceiling in there. So what we need to do is we need to make these the right thing. We need a clue for that though first. And she tells us which symbols we need because there's no other visual reference. We have to wait for her to tell us it's the Ra and the Ankhs. I mean, it's always Ra and the Ankhs on this difficulty at least. But it's good to have her reminding you. Yeah, that's a pretty close one.
Try reading a book sometime.
Thanks for saving your life. Hey, don't mention it.
So let's upgrade more stuff, shall we? Now we can reload faster, which is much nice. Or very nice, rather. This room is a neat one, but you can probably guess what's going to happen. Of course, we have to pick up puzzle parts and insert them onto the puzzle wall for the wall over there. That clue is really not much help, but there's not really much you can do. You just need to fill all the blank things with the red scarabs. But in doing so, it lets out the mummies in small waves, like 1 or 2 at a time. As you kill one, another door will open. I think is how this fight works, pretty much. And again, there's a lot of mummies in here, but right now they're coming one at a time from all directions, though. Which is what makes these kind of fights a little tough, is that the mummies come from different directions all at once. From this point on, they'll start to get a little bit, like, you have to be more careful at least with these kind of fights. But this part of the game, this early, they're still fairly easy. But again, they will get hard later. One thing I quite like with the combat in this game is when the music stops,
I think we're safe for now.
you know the combat's over, and then you can just kind of explore willy-nilly at your own pace. Of course, there's a path of light thing in there. And of course, a lot of these little plaques have remaining beetles. Of course, I'm assuming on hard mode they'd all have one. All the ones with a little pedestal in them would have a scarab as well. Which in this case we only have 3 scarabs to pick up. Now that's all of them, so let's insert them into the puzzle, shall we? This one's a little annoying, so you have to wait for it to tick past these scarabs. there we are. I quite like this game's set pieces. There's some interesting visuals going on, like this area with the completely collapsed floors and the alligators and stuff. Oh, crocodiles, it says, technically. Since it's, you know, Egypt.
Right. What now?
Come on, no time for sightseeing.
You can just chill out and watch the crocodiles, because they're not really an enemy in this game. You never really have to fight crocodiles or anything like that, so you just kind of, they're just there for the visual flair. I like that the Arts is like the only place to actually see crocodiles in the whole
We
game.
have to move.
Get ready!
So let's take out all these Nazis, shall we? One problem with having two pistols is you have to wait for them, but having both pistols out is you have to wait for them both to reload. Which certainly later in the game is less of a problem when your reload speed gets really fast, but at the moment that's kind of a bit of a handicap. However, we can fire faster because of it as well. Again, not many enemies, but that will change very quickly. This is just a kind of an introductory level to show off how sprawling and exploring the levels will get. This is the first non-tutorial level after all. So of course we can go down the bottom path, but that's kind of a trap. What we need to do, what we actually want to do, is go out the top path. Because of course we do. Because if we can sneak around this area with all the holes in the ceiling/floor, we can actually get of course, a treasure right up here that otherwise we won't be able to easily go back for, as far as I'm aware. I don't know if the doors close or not, but either way, this is just the easiest way to get this one. We know we've done it. These things just keep popping up every now and then. They're not that intrusive, they're just kind of there. Oh, we should just kind of teleport us there, so let's head forward, shall we? This is the first room that's actually a little bit difficult. And it's also the last room in the entire level, pretty much, so that's expected. Of course, it's a very basic puzzle, just 3 animals in order of size, from the biggest to smallest, on these pressure plates will move the statue around. But in doing so, it will also trigger something. So first of all, let's pick up some dynamite and solve the puzzle in the room for the optional thing, shall we? If we blow up this wall, we can actually get a path of the warrior behind here too. After that low frame rate explosion, we now can reach through the bricks to grab the Path of the Warrior 4 treasure. Or the 4th Path of the Warrior. So let's start solving this puzzle, shall we?
Good one. Are those rails under that statue? Think we can move it?
Not this one, that's the second switch. Here we are. Oh no, battle music. Let's get to a corner real quick, because this is the first actually difficult fight against Nazis. Because they come from all directions from this point on, and they just keep swarming you as the room goes on. Every other room, you pretty much like just fought the Nazis that were already there. In this room, they're going to be continually spawning. Until the fight ends, of course. Not continually forever, just spawning until there's no more to spawn, basically. Spawning until the fight's over. Why any courses they're coming in waves. I'm just glad that pot didn't release spiders, because that's a pain. Oh, get away from the grenade. Any slowdown in the fights tends to come in the game itself. It's just one of those kind of games. It's a bit like low budget, so sometimes if there's too much happening on screen at once, it can have a little bit of struggle. Yeah, as you can see, there's even more Nazis over here now. There's a lot of enemies in this particular fight, compared to all the other fights you've been through at least. So this is the first one we have to actually get pretty good at the fighting. Of course, it's not always straight up fighting. Some of the levels do have somewhat small gimmicks for the fights, and I quite like that. But again, we're not there yet. So there we are, we have another good gun that kills everything faster than the pistols do anyway. And of course he dropped his grenade. That was lucky for us, because it's always annoying when the grenade is up on your side of the fence. So then you have to flee from it and take a lot of damage from the side. Oh dear, like this. And then you can easily get killed by a stray bullet. Because sometimes you can actually get killed really quickly without realizing. I'm not sure if the enemy's going to headshot or not or anything like that. But I just know that sometimes I've been taking a few bullets and been fine, and sometimes I've died really quickly after getting hit by a grenade, and it's like, well, this is inconsistent. And there we are. Now, all of the guns in this game are somewhat fun to use, but some of them are kind of situational. Like, sometimes you end up in a big fight with a lot of enemies very far away, and you end up with a shotgun, and it's like, I don't want this. But sometimes the shotgun is quite satisfying to use. It all depends on the situation. Of course, all we see right now is the assault rifle, but that's just kind of a small kind of a weakness that the combat can have sometimes, is that sometimes some of the weapons just aren't particularly useful. It just depends on the situation you're in. Because one thing I quite like is that the game tells you very severely when you're done with a switch, because it completely seals it. Like this. Which is a nice visual way of going, okay, you're done here, now you can move on. Otherwise, you might end up leaving a switch too early, pressing the next one too early, and end up with the whole puzzle resetting, and that would suck. One thing I like with this as well is if you look really closely, as this actually moves, you can also see the door behind it starting to creep open.
Behind the statue. Let's go.
And now it's fully open, so let's actually leave the level, shall we?
Ladies first.
You're kidding.
It's called chivalry, I've been told.
You have a lot to learn about chivalry, quite.
Quite like these sort of sequences as well. Sometimes you get these nice little, like, cinematic sequences of something really cool happening. And that's always kind of fun, especially in a particular level later on where they'll be ridiculous in a really fun way. It's always nice when the game gives you something like that to play with. And now we have something else to play with. Anti-tank rounds. For fleshy boys. Yeah, this is just a game going, okay, have fun. And he killed himself with a grenade because he's an idiot, but there we go. I quite like when the game gives you these kind of weapons. It doesn't do it often, but it's satisfying when it does give you this option.
Quartermain, are you hurt?
We should be safe now.
Now I really like that his grenade blew up in his face as well after I killed him, because that was a satisfying end to the fight, was that little explosion. So of course now we've opened the door, so let's just see what other upgrades we can get now. Now the flashlight's a lot faster to recharge, and we have a faster rate of fire for all our weapons, so that's going to be very helpful going forward. And of course we still have a couple of treasures to go, so let's pick those up before we actually leave the level proper. I quite like that we get to come out of here again as well. It's like we started in the daytime and came in the when it was nice and bright out and very yellow, and now we're out at night because it's been that long. It's been all night since we've been doing this, and now it's very blue. And I quite like the contrast there with the yellow fire and the orange stonework, but everything else being bathed in blue. It's a very visually interesting aesthetic. It's very well lit, and I quite like this area because of it. I also like the camels and everything, just the little tent areas. There's a lot of little things like this in the game, little areas that you have no reason to go to, but because they have no secrets or anything, but they're just kind of nice to be there. Of course, though, we do have one more secret over here, the last secret of the level. So let's go pick that up, shall we? And it's actually an introduction to a new kind of puzzle that we won't need to do mandatory until near the end of the game. But it's giving us a sneak peek right now. Flashlight puzzles. This one's fairly basic, it's just use the symbols at the top to light the lights below. Of course, the arrangement of the lights outside the thing is the same as the arrangement of the lights which light up. It's pretty much just lights out. And a fairly basic one, I mean, it's only normal mode and this is a very early puzzle. So there's our final treasure for this level. And I was counting wrong, it's 14 treasures in this level, but there you go. So now let's finish things off, shall we? With a lengthy set of cutscenes. So after we've spoken to her and left this area, I'll see you next time for the next level. Goodbye.
Hey, someone's got to stop
Enjoy the
getting
cutscenes.
yourself killed. Magic artifacts, ancient curses, rampaging mummies. Suddenly my great-granddad's stories didn't seem all that crazy. The true curse, however, was my own curiosity. My hunting instincts had been awakened, just like those rotting corpses. Now the hunt was on.
It's a map. It shows the position of Sirius and the stars around it. But tens of thousands of years ago.
So it's out of date?
Ever so slightly. But this configuration, it can only be observed from one place, the Arctic. That is where you'll find the next fragment of the heart. It's where the Nazis are headed.
About that. What exactly is this heart doohickey, and how many pieces are there?
We don't know. All we know is it was created by an ancient people, long before any known human civilization. A people so advanced, they might be the basis of all our legends about gods and mythical places. In particular, the island of Atlantis.
And when we reassemble a heart, Atlantis will pop up somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean?
Of course not. That would be absurd.
Right.
The heart supposedly controls the forces of life, and you even want to think about what the Nazis could do with such power if they managed to reassemble it. The mummies in Egypt were just a foretaste of what's to come.
The most unbelievable part of all this so far is how you got Uncle Sam to pay for this whole crazy agency of yours.
Ever heard of the Panama Canal? It only exists thanks to Professor Jacob's genius. Financing this agency was the least they could do in return.
And are all the other agents pain-in-the-ass bookworms like you?
Better dress warmly, Mr. Quatermain. Just a few more miles.
Visibility's nil. I have to take us down or we'll crash. We'll walk the rest of the way.
Walk? We don't have time for that. We have to...
Listen.
No. For once, you listen.
Not me, the radio.
Sounds like an agency distress call.
Could be Hagen.
Hard to tell. Too much interference.
Okay, time to do this live. I'll go and check it out. See if I can find Hagen.
Are you crazy? We have clear orders.
Yeah, and I'm a real follow orders kind of guy. Hagen saved your well-shaped ass in Egypt, remember? We owe him. Time to improvise. You stay here, analyze that star map. I'll be back as soon as I find the source of that distress signal.
All right. You had me at well-shaped.